Hi, everybody. I'm Mary, and I'm an alcoholic. Um, Thank you for inviting me here to speak tonight. It's always an honor and it's a privilege to be able to share my experience and my strength and hope that I've gotten from Alcoholics Anonymous. And if anybody here is new, like brand new, I can remember 28 years ago yesterday when I walked into my first AA meeting and I did not feel like I belonged. I heard the chatter and the laughter and the people sharing with each other before the meeting, and it felt so foreign to me. And I felt hopeless and helpless and did not expect to be able to quit drinking. Um, Thought that it was an impossibility. And I heard how it works that night, and a couple of things struck me, one of which was the fact that, um, you had to be capable of honesty to grasp the program, and I was afraid that was gonna disqualify me right from the start, because from the time I could walk and talk, I had been, not very honest and always accused of not being honest, and also, I heard in How It Works that, we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it's too much for us, but there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. And that made me think about all the mornings that I woke up after passing out the night before while laying in bed drunk and praying that I wouldn't be the person tomorrow that I was that day. And waking up and, thinking I shouldn't drink, and I'm shaken apart because by the end I was physically addicted, and I would wake up and I would need to drink and I wouldn't be able to keep it down. And, I'd be reaching for that bottle to stand over my kitchen sink, try and get enough in me to go do what I needed to do. And my brain would say, "You're not going to do this today. You just prayed and asked God to give you the ability to not do this." And I'd drink it anyway. And that made me think of it when I heard cunning, baffling, and powerful, and that good God could help me. So I am very grateful to be here. Like Karen said, my anniversary date is February 3rd of 1997. Um, and I hope that I can convey hope. Anytime I speak in Alcoholics Anonymous, I want to convey hope because that's what I found here. I found here love, I found hope, I found tolerance, and I found the ability to not take a drink a day at a time and to connect with a God of my understanding, a higher power that has certainly changed over the years. But, I can't begin to say the kind of gifts that I have gotten from this program. And of course, I'm celebrating an anniversary. It's a time for reflection. The end of my drinking was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. The last 3.5 weeks that I drank, alcohol had quit working. I had reached the jumping off point we hear about in the big book where I couldn't imagine my life going forward with alcohol. I couldn't imagine going forward without alcohol. Alcohol was no longer functioning as a solution to my problems, where it had very effectively for many years. And I wanted to not live anymore. I lacked um, I had 3 kids that at the time that I got sober, they were 9, 11, and I had just turned 13, and I didn't wanna leave them alone. I didn't wanna commit suicide, but I didn't wanna live anymore. So that's what walked in the door. Physically addicted, alcohol doesn't work. I have no tools because alcohol had become my total coping strategy. Of course, I didn't start out my drinking that way. My first drunk was at, 17 and a half, maybe a little later than some, maybe a little earlier than some. I will tell you that first night that I got drunk, I didn't plan on drinking. I would have rather not had a beer when they asked me if I wanted to have a beer, but I was with my sister and her friend. She was 4 years older than I was, and I was not welcome in her circle very often, so I took that beer. And I drank that first beer, and I drank enough beers that night that I got drunk. I drank enough beers that night that I got sick when I got home, and my dad heard me and I got in trouble. And at that point, my dad explained a few facts of life to me. He told me that I was not going to drink with my feet under his table and living under his roof, that if I thought to drink again while living under his roof with my feet under his table, he would break both my arms at the elbows to make me not take a drink. Probably not true. 99.9% probably not true. But my dad had a temper and my dad drank. And, I was that lightning rod kid that was always in trouble. So any rule you set down, I had to break. I don't know why. I was wired wrong. So I didn't drink again in my parents' house until I was 38 years old. And my dad was dying of cancer. And I went back home and I played the dutiful daughter all day. This was 9 months before I got sober. Played the dutiful daughter all day and then stayed up all night drinking. And, by the end of a week going by living like that, I was crazy. I was just crazy. Um, so a lot of years in between those two things. 17 and a half the first time that I got drunk. I got sober right after I turned 39. I'll tell you, by the time I was 19, I had already quit drinking forever for the first time. I was in college. Legal drinking age was 18. I would go out to the bars with my friends and I would order my drinks four at a time. That's how I drank. I drank like a pig the first time I drank. I drank like a pig every time I drank. I have no doubt if I took a drink today, I would drink like a pig. It is how I it's how I do it. I didn't notice that my friends only ordered one drink at a time, but I ordered four because that bartender was busy. It was a big college town. By the time he got back around, I would have been thirsty for a long time. So, when I decided to quit drinking that time, I had a week of doing a lot of stuff that violated my own moral code. And I found that out when I did my fourth step coming into Alcoholics Anonymous. At the time, I would have told you I decided I didn't like the taste of alcohol and I quit drinking because of that. The specifics of it were I went out on a date with a older brother of a friend of mine, and we were all very drunk, and the car went off the road into the ditch. There were briars and brambles in that ditch, and I came home from my date with my clothing ripped, I'm all scratched and I'm all bloody, and my roommate thought I'd been assaulted and called the cops. I'm too drunk to say, no, this is what you look like when the car goes off the road into the ditch and you push it out. And I'm too drunk to talk to the cops, tell them I'm okay. And I was mortified. And when I woke up the next day or came to the next day, I thought, I really don't like the taste of alcohol. I think I will stop drinking. And I did. I didn't drink for a number of years, maybe 2, 3, 4. And right after I quit drinking, I met the man I was to marry. And not that I'm impulsive or anything, but I met him, and within 3 weeks, we're living together. Within a few months, we're going to get married. Um, no, I don't jump. uh, I am happy to say, because of this program and sobriety and the fact that he is a loving and forgiving man, that we celebrated 46 years of marriage last June, and our anniversary happens to be AA's anniversary. So, some things seem almost destined to be, because certainly we'd have no marriage if it wasn't for AA. So we got married. He'd never seen me drink. I did not drink for a couple years. As I graduated from college, he lost his job and decided to go back to college. We moved to Ohio from Michigan, not in my game plan. And I started working to put him through school to get a second degree. We're living next door to his parents, renting a place from them. Without realizing it, I am starting to get restless, irritable, and discontent. And eventually he suggested that I take a drink with him. He said, "You don't like the taste of alcohol?" So I'll get a really nice bottle of wine and you pack a beautiful picnic lunch and we'll go on a canoe trip and drift down the river and we'll have this picnic, sip this wine, have a wonderful time. Didn't work out exactly like that. We got in the canoe, we pushed off, he opened the bottle of wine, he poured a glass for him, he poured a glass for me, and before he finished his glass, I finished my glass, I finished the bottle, and I finished his glass, and I got very drunk. I have limited memories of that canoe trip. I have one of where I'm laying in the bottom of the canoe and he is begging me to stay down there so I don't tip us over. I have another one that he is questioning me with this baffled look on his face about why I threw the food overboard because I thought the ducks would enjoy it more than I was enjoying it. And I have another memory of laying on the floor of the van with the other people who were on this canoe trip being driven back to where our car was, and everyone was laughing and everyone was having a good time, including me. Those are my sole memories of that trip. But I will tell you that boy, within a year, certainly, my husband wasn't laughing as much about my consumption of alcohol. I was doing things like telling him I had sales meetings after work and not coming home till 4 a.m. drunk and crawling up the stairs to our apartment, and he was standing at the top of the stairs and he wasn't laughing anymore. And that night in particular, when he went downstairs the next day, he found a car that had blood all over the inside of it, and he was understandably quite concerned. And it turns out right before I left the bar, I did one of these and broke a glass and cut my hand and bled all over the inside of the car on the way home, and I had no clue, none. So by then I'm in my middle 20s, and it didn't get any better. Through my 20s, I binge drank. I might go a year, I might go even 2 years in between having a drink. But I'll tell you, it eventually got to the point that every time I was mad, every time I couldn't handle life, every time I didn't know what to do, every time that I had some kind of an issue that I couldn't figure out, somehow when I got drunk, it reset the needle and I wasn't frustrated and I wasn't angry and I wasn't, unsure of what I was to do. Again, I think that's being an alcoholic. The alcohol reset the wiring, it bled off the all of the frustration and the pressure and made it so that I could be living my life. And gradually, without me knowing it, it became the solution for everything. I was raised in a house. My parents went to church. My parents took us to church to introduce us to a God of their understanding. My parents were very active in our community. They did an awful lot of good. My dad drank a lot, but I don't believe he was an alcoholic. I don't see any progression. I do see some, problems because of too much drinking, but he didn't drink like I do. My alcoholism progressed and it took over my life. So by the time I'm 33, I have 3 little kids. I have 3 kids under 4, because if I like something, I do it a lot, and that includes having children quickly. And, my husband's traveling 2 weeks out of the month for his job, so I'm at home alone with the kids a lot, and it is a lot. And, I remember having my first baby, and for a little while, that hole that was inside of me started to close up a little bit. But I have to tell you, that baby, that all 3 of my babies, I loved them. I planned for them. I wanted them. That first baby that I wouldn't leave in a crib to go upstairs to change the laundry from the washer to the dryer. I left her alone, awake in a crib, and walked to a convenience store that was, a few hundred yards away to get a bottle of wine. Came back home, and because I couldn't get the screw top open, I busted the neck of the bottle off, and I just patted myself on the shoulder because I had the sense to pour it through a sieve before I drank it, so I don't drink glass. You know, I had problems with alcohol long before I ever considered I had problems with alcohol. So, I have these 3 little kids, my husband's traveling a lot for work, and I'm responsible at home while he's traveling, and I make a decision to take a drink every day before dinner as a cocktail because I remember my mom having a cocktail before dinner and it made her relaxed. It made her a happier person during dinner. And I thought it might work for me. Well, I'll tell you, man, did it take me as soon as I made a decision to take a drink on a daily basis. Pretty soon I'm having a drink or two before dinner, then I'm having a drink or two before dinner, I'm having a drink or two after dinner. I forgot the fact that my mom had one drink and then made dinner, did the dishes, helped us with homework, put us to bed, did the laundry, cleaned up the house, got the breakfast ready, and went to bed herself. Within 6 months, I was drinking straight liquor. I was drinking all day long after my family walked out the door to go to school and go to work, and, it just took me. I read in the big book that sometimes it takes women quicker, and it sure did me. And the rest of that was when I was, 33 years old. It took me another 6 years of hell to get into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Eventually, I started spending so much money on alcohol, my husband questioned my consumption. He never asked me to quit drinking. He never said he had a problem with my drinking, but I will tell you my drunken behavior ended me in marriage counseling, and that was 3 years before that I got into, AA, and I got assessed there, and I lied like crazy, and I told this little tiny amount I drank every day, and they assured me I was an alcoholic, that I was self-medicating, and that I needed to go to AA, and I was really I mean, I rejected that because that amount I said, first of all, I lied, and it was so little that nobody could be an alcoholic who was drinking that much every day. And it just made sense at the time. It doesn't now. And I'll tell you, on the way home from that marriage counseling, my husband looked at me and, you know, he told me, I don't care if you drink. I don't care if you do drugs. I just want you to behave better. You know, can you just behave? Please act like a married woman. Please act like the mother of 3 children. Please act like somebody who's gonna be a responsible individual taking care of everything we've built up until now. And I'll tell you, not for the first time, reality's looking me in the face, and I've been drinking for years because look at what he's done to me. Look at this life I have. Look at all these responsibilities I have. And then I come into Alcoholics Anonymous 3 years later, and I move work steps, and I do a 4th step. And I look at the fact that all of the resentments I carried against my husband, when I think about it rationally, I can remember all of the conversations where I would say, if I only have this, I'll be happy. And I mean, the kind of things I wanted was like a 40 by 70-foot garden that I'll take care of it. I really want to have it. It's going to be, you know, I want these 3 kids. And he'd say, boy, you already, we have 2 kids that are under 3. Are you sure you want another baby right now? Yes, it'll make me happy. The bottom line is what he did was believe me when I said, if I just had this, I'll be happy. And he let me go, you know? But I drank a lot over resentment about the life I had, which was the life I built and the choices I made over his strenuous ejection sometimes, but he always let me have my way. So, you know, now I have 3 more years of drinking and I'm no longer drinking out of resentment. I've had this epiphany in marriage counseling about who I really am. And now I'm drinking out of guilt, shame, and remorse. And the important thing for me to remember today and me to say to you is that all my right in my face epiphanies when I was drinking lasted as long as I could get another bit of alcohol in me to try and wash them away. And the only thing they ever did was increase my shame, increase my guilt, and increase my drinking to try and get rid of it. So I drank for another 3 years, and like I told you, I ended up physically addicted to alcohol. I couldn't make it through the night without waking up to get alcohol in me. Um, I am now, keeping plates spinning. I'm volunteering at school, but I can only do it first thing in the morning, and it requires an awful lot of fluids and an awful lot of aspirin to be able to do it. And I'm locking myself in the bedroom when my kids get home from school and, just not being the mother I'm meant to be. So lots lots and lots of shame came into Alcoholics Anonymous with me. So, what brought me here? In the last month of my drinking, someone who had been a close friend of mine committed suicide. He committed suicide right after he shot his son and tried to kill him in an argument over money. And he left my name and phone number for the neighbors to tell the police for that I needed to plan a couple funerals. And so at 1:15 in the morning, I have the police knocking at my door to tell me that this has happened, and he was not able to murder his son, but he did commit suicide. And they told me this news. They said I had a funeral to plan and that here's the funeral home. And I had my last moment where reality slapped me in the face. And standing in my kitchen that night drunk because I worked as a chef. I had a meal for 65 people. I was doing a buffet that night at my church that I was setting up. And I was cooking for it. And I cooked best when I was under the influence. And I needed to go shopping and again, shop at 3 a.m. when you're under the influence because then nobody calls the cops on you. You're not in anybody's way in the store. And these cops told me what happened, and I thought several things. The first thing I knew was that alcohol had poisoned his mind to the point where he could be angry enough to pick up a gun and try and end the life of somebody he loved. That was his oldest son. He loved him a lot. And I understood that I was an alcoholic, that I was not that nice girl that just drank a little bit too much to handle my problems. And that's what was going on. And he was the real alcoholic. Um, I understood that if I were to continue drinking, I might be capable of the same kind of violence against one of my kids. And that terrified me. That terrified me. And I kept drinking. And I passed out that night, and I got up the next morning and I took a drink. And every drink I took from that moment until 3.5 weeks later, when I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought, is this the one that's going to make me go crazy and hurt my kids? That, together with the shame, brought me to my knees, and the advanced grace of a God as I understand God that night took away the effect of alcohol. From that moment until the time that I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, alcohol lost its effect. I couldn't get drunk. I couldn't get sober. I was physically addicted. I couldn't quit drinking. I never want to go back to that hell. I touch it every time I lead. I touch it every time I come up on an anniversary. I don't want to go back there. I am willing to do whatever it takes to stay here. If it means getting up in front of a bunch of people and ratting myself out, I am getting up in front of a bunch of people and I am ratting myself out. If it means that I can help somebody else by sharing the tragedy that was my life, you bet. And most importantly, I want to share the joy and the triumph, you know? I walked in here dragging a city full of guilt, shame, and remorse behind me. And I heard from the podium and I heard people reading the promises and, will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. And I thought, that may work for you, but it is never going to work for me. And I'm here to tell you that every single one of those promises have come true for me. And I don't know when it happened and I don't know how it happened, but my past has been able to be transformed into strictly a tool that helps someone else. And I'm okay with that. Are there things I would change if I could? Absolutely. But I absolutely know I do not have the power to do that. The only way I can transform them is to live my life in a better way today, to put the principles from these 12 steps that saved my life and gave me a spiritual experience sufficient to not take a drink a day at a time. I put those into my life and I help carry them to other people. I got active right away. I got a sponsor because I heard from the program that you needed to get a sponsor. and and she told me I had to shake everybody's hand in the room when I went to a meeting. So I started showing up like an hour early because like there's 3 people setting up the meeting, 3 hands to shake, and I'm done. It's cool. So then she'd show up, 20 minutes before the meeting to say, "Did you shake their hand? Did you shake their hand?" And make me go shake everybody's hand again. So it didn't work all that well. But what it did was I showed up early for meetings, and I've never been very good at sitting. I've never been very good at not helping out if I'm around. And I eavesdropped a lot and I did a lot of service work, setting up meetings, making coffee, which at that point I had never had a cup of coffee in my life. So they drank some awfully, awfully strong coffee for a while. And people would say, "You know how much I have to add to this to make it drinkable? Put less grounds in." Um, and we had ashtrays to clean. It was still smoking then. So I came in and I got a sponsor. I believed what I heard from the podium that the steps would save my life, and I got busy in the steps and I worked the steps. Um, there were an awful lot of times I didn't want to do things, and sometimes I had to pray a lot for the ability to say yes to things that I was asked to do. But I believed people when they told me, the happy people that were living life and living life on life's terms, that no matter what the circumstances of their lives were, they were generally even tempered, they were fairly happy, and they seemed to enjoy life. They were all in the big book. And they all told me to be in the big book. So I was. Um, and so I worked steps. And I didn't, have any problem with God because I have had a belief in God from when I was very little. I would see things that would make me believe that, and nothing in my life has made me come away from the fact that there is a higher power. I believe that, and I feel that strength and that power in my life, and it is what helps me not take a drink a day at a time. So, didn't have any trouble with that, did not like the 4th and 5th step, but I grew up Catholic and I'm well aware of confession and I could see the value in doing that. And I'm a cook. I catered. I ran my own catering company. I worked for my church, cooking for large events. And I understood when an old man sober a really long time said, "Listen, it's easy. If you have a refrigerator full of rotten food, you clean out the rotten food before you can put anything good in. Do your 4th step, do your 5th step, clean out that refrigerator." That worked for me. Um, 6 and 7, that has grown a lot. The first time it was just a stop in the church to hit my knees and spend that hour and know that I had done my best to build a good foundation. It gets stronger and stronger. This is where, all the work is. All of the work is, it seems like. And I had to do my amends. I did not want to do my amends. And I thought it was a cop out, the not telling people stuff. And I'm about to lose my battery. Hold on. There we go. Um, but I made my way through there. And when I went to make amends with my husband, my heart fell because the first words out of his mouth was, my understanding of amends is to make things, to repair things, to make them like they were. And he said, "I don't think you can do that. You know, can you get back the money that you took out of the marriage? No, because any money you earn is going to go back in." Because once he questioned how much I spent on alcohol, I started plundering my kids' college funds. It was we made an agreement that if we both worked, one check would go in. That was my check. I worked as a cook. He was a chemical engineer. That was an easy guess whose check we're going to live on. And, he was out of town. I was the only one that signed those papers. So there was my money. So I'm stealing from my kids' future. But anyways, when I went to make amends with him, he said, you can't do it. But what you can do, I think, is if you keep doing what you're doing right now, I think we can build something a lot better than what we had. And certainly 28 years later, we have something a lot better than what we had. And thank you all. Thank a God of my understanding and 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and a dedication to staying active in the program and not drinking a day at a time, because I can't begin to tell you how great my life is. They taught me at first I needed to pray and ask God for help. I needed to meditate at least a minute. Oh, that was a long minute. Um, and I needed to keep going to AA. I had to clean up my side of the street. I had to make amends when appropriate. And I had to help the next sick and suffering alcoholic. And I was sucked into a group of very active women, and they told me when I was gonna start sponsoring, and they told me when I was gonna start chairing meetings, and they told me when I was gonna make my first lead, and half the time I would think, "No," and I'd still do it, Um, 'cause they all did it, and I saw the rewards they reaped, and I wanted that. So, the things that I have been gifted, along with the gift of sobriety, I've been gifted with the ability to lay my head on the pillow at night and go to sleep. I have been gifted with the ability to look myself in the mirror and not hate what I see. I have been gifted with the ability to show up. I have 9 grandchildren who have never seen me never seen me drink, that count on grandma, that are over at my house along with their parents once or twice a week for the whole family to have a meal together. Because as my husband said, I may have retired from catering, but I still cook like crazy, and I love it. And, I'm retired, I babysit my grandkids. What a joy, what a joy. They all know that I love them. I can guarantee I would not be in their lives if I had kept drinking. I probably wouldn't even still be alive. I have 3 children, I have 3 in-law children. I don't have a beef with a single one of them. I don't have a beef with my husband. I don't have a beef with anybody. I can't remember the last time that I was sideways with somebody. My understanding, my own personal understanding of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous comes from a couple of simple sentences. Love and tolerance is our code, period. We're going to meet on the ground, the common ground. You know, we are survivors of a shipwreck. And how lucky are we? How many people die of this disease and they never achieve sobriety? The very first woman that I sponsored died carrying a beeper, waiting for a liver in her blood type. And she picked up a drink. That's no surprise. We do that, we do that. Fear is not enough, you know. But I got to be with her on the night that she was dying because she wanted me there, and I got to see somebody dying from alcoholism who couldn't talk to her family because of guilt, shame, and remorse. And I went from her deathbed to the oldest continuous AA group in the world had an anniversary the next day. And I am not the smartest person in the room, but I can connect those dots. I don't know why we were so much alike. We were born within a week of each other. We had been married the same amount of time. We had the same number of kids. They were the same ages. The only difference was she drank beer and I drank hard liquor, but yet her liver gave out and she couldn't stay sober. And I'm still here 28 years later. Do I know why? No. Am I grateful? Yes. Am I going to continue to do the things that remind me I'm an alcoholic and remind me that I need to apply the solution every single day? Yes. I go to more meetings now than I have in a very long time. On a regular basis, I'm going to 7 meetings a week. I woke up one day and went, how did this happen? I'm not even sure, but here I am. Um, and I have a great life. I have an absolutely great life. I am very active in Alcoholics Anonymous and I love it. I love it. I don't always enjoy that moment where someone says, "Can you do this?" And I have to decide yes or no. and I have to say yes unless I have a good reason to say no. And then I go, "Oh, well, I've got an awful lot of things to do," but I'll tell you, I have never not managed to get everything done. And I'd rather have a busy life in Alcoholics Anonymous than a really quiet life sitting, getting myself blind drunk in a bedroom full of guilt, shame, and remorse and wanting to die, you know? So, um, I don't know. I just can't tell you all the wonderful things that have happened. I was a secretary for a long time, for like 15 years in a sober club, and there was an old man who was sober a long time that was the resident there at the club. And I used to come 2 hours early to set up the meeting, and I got to spend every Friday morning sitting with him and talking until the meeting build up enough that I'm picking up people and it's full of people before we start, and he's still there, but we're not having the one-on-ones. And the people who came before me that shared their experience and their story with me and helped me understand what I needed to do just continues to blow me away. And I think often about the fact that what kind of gratitude do I show if I am not available to do the same thing to somebody that is sitting in a room that needs somebody with some experience and somebody who has walked through the same things to show up? So I'm just going to keep showing up. I heard a lead once say, "I don't care if I ever lead again. I don't care if you like a single thing I say. You can't make me go away. You can't keep me out. I belong here." I was kicked out of every single thing I tried to join as a kid except for athletics. I tried brownies, I tried the next one up, and then I tried Girl Scouts, and I got kicked out of every single one within a meeting or 2. And so anything that involved having to sit and take a direction, I didn't do very well at, but I do well here because alcohol beat me up bad enough that I can listen to you tell me what I should do and how I should get better. So thank you for that. And Karen, thank you for asking me to share here. Thanks everybody for listening so nicely and quietly. And that's I'm done. Thank you.